A couple has been jailed for the murder of a 2-year-old toddler. That's what I'm talking about in this episode, people. Before I get into the video, could you all go down, hit that like button, get the algorithm boosted to get more people watching this episode. Now, the toddler in question is 2-year-old Isabella Jonas Wheildon, and she was murdered by a spineless little rat who goes by the name of Scott Jeff, and the toddler's mother, who is Chelsea Gleason Mitchell. That's them two there. But have a look at him. 24-year-old, even looks like a rat. Spineless little maggot. Now, the murder of this poor little toddler took place in June 2023. He has been lifed off for her murder with a minimum of 26 years. And the mother, who is just as bad and in my opinion should have received the same sentence as he did. She wasn't found guilty on the murder charge, but she was found guilty for causing or allowing the death of the toddler, and she received a 10-year sentence. She is just as bad because that spineless maggot, what she is as well, stood and allowed this for the sake of her partner. She put him over the safety of her toddler. Now, Scott Jeff had only just come back in to Chelsea's life, and he'd only been back with her for 36 days before he went on to murder her daughter. Now, some of the things that he was doing to this toddler is absolutely horrific, and it will turn anyone's stomach. I mean, there's the toddler there. There's poor little Isabella. Look, I mean, I've got 4 children myself, and how anyone could harm a child in this way, the way that this despicable little creature, what I'll refer to him as, has done to that poor defenseless little baby or toddler, and she has stood there and let that happen. How could a mother let a despicable little creature like that come into her life or come back in, because they did have a relationship in 2019. He's come back into her life, and within 4 weeks, he's beat that toddler senseless, black and blue, all over. Some of the injuries that Isabella sustained were the same as what would happen in a road traffic accident. That is how hard and severe he has beat that poor little toddler. It said it was also the equivalent of getting kicked by a horse, the injuries that he's inflicted on that poor little girl. Now, I will go a little bit more into the story, tell you a few more facts about what actually happened in this case. So the High Court judge, Mr. Justice Neil Graham, described Gleason Mitchell as a weak and spineless person and pathetically desperate. Obviously desperate for love from that other rotten creature. He also said Jeff's attacks were monstrous and Isabella would have felt utter terror in his presence. CCTV footage since released by Suffolk Police captured the couple laughing and joking half an hour after the murder, and again in the days that followed. How ridiculous and sad is that? After wheeling her body in a pushchair around Ipswich, the pair locked Isabella in a bathroom at East Villa's housing unit in the town and went on the run. Over the course of a 7-week trial at Ipswich Crown Court, the jury heard from countless witnesses and examined endless dossiers of evidence. This included text messages and internet searches found on the couple's phones following their arrest during the early hours on the 1st of July 2023 in Bury St Edmunds, Suffolk. In the trial, Chelsea said Scott had asked her to buy a shovel and that effectively they were readying themselves for disposing of Isabella. There was evidence in the days after Isabella's death that they were looking at ways to leave the country without passports and other travel methods and how to flee the country. Some of the destinations they considered included Scotland and Amsterdam, while they had also looked up how to get to Southend-on-Sea in Essex. But their escape plan was thwarted after Isabella's body was discovered under a pile of blankets in a pushchair by police officers on the 30th of June 2023 1923. Joanne Gardner, Gleason Mitchell's friend, had raised the alarm after being told by the mother that her daughter had been dead for about 3 days. Miss Gardner said Gleason Mitchell told her she had not contacted the authorities out of fear she would get done because of bruising on Isabella. Prior to arriving in Ipswich on the 19th of June, the couple had left their hometown of Biggleswade in Bedfordshire and headed to Great Yarmouth in Norfolk with Isabella. Over the next 3 weeks, they stayed in the St. George Hotel in the town, slept in a tent on the beach at nearby Caister-on-Sea, and spent time at a caravan park. During this period, they resisted offers of help, covered Isabella's bruised face with sunglasses, and lied to council officers by claiming Gleason Mitchell was fleeing an abusive relationship. By the time they had secured temporary housing in Ipswich, the previously healthy and contented toddler had been subject to repeated beatings at the hands of Jeff. The court heard Isabella suffered injuries consistent with high-velocity traffic accidents or being kicked by a horse. The blonde-haired toddler, who had traces of cocaine and cannabis in her system, died from a bone marrow embolism as a consequence of skeletal trauma. After Isabella died with her body in a pushchair, the couple acted as if nothing had happened, travelling on buses and buying an Xbox while showing no grief or emotion. Her body was treated with disdain, with a bag of shopping casually placed on top of her in the pushchair. After leaving Isabella's body in the flat, the couple headed to Ipswich town centre to visit shops, McDonald's and a pub. They then caught a train to Corn Exchange pub in Bury St Edmunds, where CCTV footage captured them swigging drinks and going about as if life is normal. Then during the early hours of the 1st of July, they were both arrested, with body cam footage showing Jeff claiming, "I never murdered her." Here is the footage now. I'll just show you exactly what happened during the arrest.
But I never murdered her. So the state I was in, I couldn't really deal with the police at that moment in time. I was really not in the right state.
Isabella, okay, was found alone and deceased at your home address. Okay, so I'm arresting you on suspicion of murder. You don't have to say anything about harm defence. You don't mention my question, something which you later will on the court. Anything you do say may be given evidence. Necessity for arrest. Do you understand what you've been arrested for? Okay.
But the court heard how the toddler was subjected to sustained violent attacks born out of Jeff's evil temper and frustration over her struggles with potty training. Bone pathologist Professor Anthony Fremont told the trial he had never before seen such a severe pelvic injury in a child in his 40-year career. Jeff would kick and stamp on the toddler and punish her with cold showers, all while her mother stood by and did nothing. The pathetic piece of shit. It was also said how the couple had previously been in a relationship in 2019, which Gleason Mitchell's family said she had changed and drank more. She even went on to try and put a defence up, saying that she had no phone or money and was isolated by Jeff, and she was suffering domestic violence at the hands of him. If you were suffering domestic violence at the hands of that piece of shit, you would not have put your children or child in danger and left your child anywhere near this despicable creature. Throughout the trial, members of Isabella's family were often present in the public gallery, including her father, Thomas Wheildon. He said, "Isabella was the most wonderful addition to my life. She was an extension of me, and I miss her every day. Her life was tragically cut short by you wicked, sadistic, and vile people." Now that father must be totally heartbroken knowing that that despicable little creature has took his child's life away in the most despicable way. I mean, the way he must have been beating that child. She must have been screaming. Poor little Isabella must have been sobbing in pain. And that mother had done nothing to stop it. Half an hour afterwards, they were seen giggling and laughing on like it shows in that CCTV with not a care in the world. Her daughter is lying there dead, and she's away laughing and giggling on to go and get off her head with a little rat of a boyfriend. Now, as you can see, I'm very passionate about cases like this with having children of my own, and I just couldn't imagine why or how somebody could actually harm a child in such a way. That's why I'm bringing these videos to let people know what's going on, because a lot of the time, no one actually sees these type of videos unless they're watching the news, because a lot of people doesn't watch the news anymore. They don't watch the BBC or the Sky News, and if you don't, you won't hear of these cases. So a lot of people resort to YouTube for these type of stories, and I will be bringing these type of stories to the public domain to let you know what these type of rats, I mean, it's degrading calling them rats. It's degrading to rats. I mean, even the rats wouldn't do such a thing like this. These are absolute creatures, vermin, disgusting pieces of shit to even do this to a poor little defenseless toddler. But for her to be acquitted on the murder, I just can't fathom that out. What about this joint enterprise, what a lot of people have been convicted on? Even though this joint enterprise, when a lot of people have been convicted on the murder, even though they never done anything, they were just there while someone was killed. This is more so gang members. A lot of gang members have been convicted for joint enterprise, but surely she should have been done for joint enterprise. She was there when the child was murdered. She didn't stop it. She knew what was going on. She knew he'd been beating the toddler for weeks. So she is just as much as guilty. She could have prevented this. She could have stopped this murder from taking place, but she didn't. So she should have been convicted on the murder as well. She should have been given more than him for letting it actually happen. She's been given a measly 10 years in prison. 10 years for that poor child's life. What she let happen. Spoke about prison justice on this channel. In my eyes, it's just desserts, because the likes of Scott Jeff, the little skinny rat-looking thing what he is, will now be on the VP wings in prison, the protection wing. But guess what? There is some big, muscly ex-offenders on them VP wings. And he, because he's just a small lad, a little weak-minded freako, he will be a target on the VP wings of the big, hairy apes. And when I say the big, hairy apes, in prison, it's a prison slang. When you say a hairy ape equals, it rhymes with that word which you can't see on YouTube. So he will become a target for the hairies inside of prison. But he will get prison justice at some point throughout his sentence, because like I've said, he's a weak man. He's not even a man, he's a little maggot. So this little weak maggot who won't be able to stand up against some of the bigger, more intimidating nonsense inside of prison, he will get a bit of prison justice off one of them. And I imagine Gleason Mitchell will be getting a warm welcome of some of the women inside of there. She will be sitting with the likes of Lucy Leppy. She'll probably be on protection herself, because the other women who have got children inside of prison, I mean, a lot of them that are in prison, they're in there and they've got children on the outside. They are still loving parents, even though they're in prison. Some of them end up in prison for unforeseen circumstances, which sometimes it can't be avoided. And they've ended up there, but they're still loving parents, and they will be despised by what she's done and what she's allowed. So I'll imagine she'll be getting slapped around with the lasses inside of prison as well. But I'll leave that one there for now, people. Hopefully you are enjoying the content, even though it's a sad story. The content is what the viewers are wanting to see, because this was passed on by one of my subscribers, JD. She sent us this, so thank you for sending the story, because I hadn't actually seen it until she sent it. But as usual, if you are enjoying the content, people, remember to comment, like and subscribe and help us on my way to 100,000 subscribers. I've just hit the 80,000 mark. It's going up at an incredible rate. So thank you very much for subscribing to the channel. And I will leave that one there for now. So take care, everyone, and enjoy the rest of your day. Stay safe.